All right, let's talk about Nebraska and UCLA, Zach. Nebraska did not have a good game at all. They did make a bit of a comeback. However, Dylan Raiola gets hurt, and I don't know. I mean, Dylan Raiola had a pretty terrible game, so not gonna say anything good about a player getting hurt, but maybe at some point it was better for them to maybe try to run it with Harburg and stuff, but at the end of the day, it was just not Nebraska's day, and Nebraska is having such a hard time to get to that bowl mark. I mean, they were 5-2, 5-3, 5-4. Like they are trying so hard to get to that bowl mark, and it's going to be difficult to get there because they just keep dropping games. And this is the game that should have got them there to it, but they lose to UCLA at home. UCLA shows that a lot of what we've been seeing from them has not been fool's gold. They do have a good team, but they still do not have a running game. But Ethan Garbers put the team on his back. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I want to just give props to is Deshaun Foster getting his guys ready to play,
Mm-hmm.
going to Nebraska, getting a win. Like, listen, UCLA, we knew they were going to have a terrible season. According to Sagarin, they have the number one hardest schedule in the country.
Yeah.
And like, I think at best, I think we set the over under on win total was 2. Like it was, I think I had them at 2-10. I think when we did it together, I think we said maybe 1-11. I mean, it was not good. So I know it's ridiculous to say this, but for UCLA to get 3 wins this season with this schedule is actually pretty significant. And I think while I think we've been critical of Foster, like he's done enough to get this team to progress with Ethan Garbers at quarterback, with their wide receivers, that they've been able to get a couple of wins that we didn't expect. So I think there's some props for UCLA. Bottom line is this though. This is a failure for Nebraska. This is a failure for Matt Rhule. It's a failure for Marcus Satterfield, an offensive coordinator. And the fact that they dropped the last 3 games after going 5-1 is it's abysmal. I get that it was Indiana, who's much better than we expected, and Ohio State, who they probably should have beat, but you can't drop this game. And they did. And it's inexcusable for Nebraska, for a team that wants to kind of lift this curse, and for everyone saying Matt Rhule is going to be, kind of build the foundation. You had a lot of goodwill from the fan base until this happened. This should not have happened. And I think this is going to turn the fan base. If the fan base wasn't already turned against Matt Rhule, this will turn them if it hasn't already.
Yeah, I mean, starting with UCLA, you're right. This was a big win for them. They now have road wins as their 2 Big Ten wins on the road against Rutgers, and this was just last week, so Rutgers is a shell of what they were at the beginning of the season, but still a road win against Rutgers, and then you have this road win against Nebraska. Now it's impressive that UCLA has been able to go on the road and win these games, but at the end of the day, like I'm with you, man. Like for as much goodwill as you were feeling about Nebraska last week after Ohio State. Like you saw the Indiana game and you hated that you got blown out like that, but it was also like they just kept fighting and fighting and they were trying to get the win even though they were down by so much and they just kept digging the hole more. You could almost excuse that away, right? People who watched the game and people who saw what happened, you could almost excuse that away and say, it is what it is. Just move on from it. Don't let it impact the season. Then you have a close game against Ohio State. Ohio State doesn't play well, and you go crazy, almost upsetting them. I mean, you're ahead in the fourth quarter, and then you come out in this game against UCLA, and UCLA just dominates. I mean, Nebraska tries to come back with a little bit of a run there at the end, but it's just it's not enough. I saw a Nebraska fan put together a spreadsheet of every single final drive against these teams where they lose by 1 score, and it's just like, what in the world? Like there are just so many drives that are unsuccessful at the end of the game, and it's not just Matt Rhule. Like it's Scott Frost.
Mhm.
It is all different kinds of coaches. I mean, coordinators, everything. Like it's not just one head coach. There's so many different coaches and coordinators, everything that's going on, and they cannot get it figured out.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in curses, but Nebraska might get me to believe in curses because
Yeah.
whatever they did, whatever voodoo magic they did in the '90s to be so good, it is worn off here
Yeah.
since then because everything just seems to go against the Cornhuskers and they can never catch a break.
Yeah. It's almost like as soon as Tom Osborne left, it was I don't know what happened, but it was bad.
Yeah.
Like they got the 3 national championships and Tom Osborne's like, I sold my soul. And that I don't actually mean that, but I it is weird. Like they just have and I mean they haven't been the same since Bo Pelini got fired. And like Bo Pelini wasn't a
Yeah.
great coach. And I don't think he would do as well now as he did because the Big Ten was weaker back then.
Yeah.
But I just, man, it's I feel awful for Nebraska fans, but I also am like I really expected Matt Rhule to have at least some sort of improvement, and I don't know like at USC is winnable, Nebraska is winnable, at Iowa I don't think is winnable anymore, but like I don't know who I trust less, USC, Wisconsin, or Nebraska. Because all three of those teams are kind of spiraling right now.
I mean, I
And
I trust Wisconsin more. I mean, I know they had that bad game against Iowa, but I still think they can win with defense, especially if I mean, especially with what Satterfield is putting out there right now. Satterfield has to go. I mean, there's no
yeah,
if and buts about it. Marcus
he's
Satterfield is
awful.
not an offensive coordinator at the Big Ten level. He needs to go learn someplace else. I don't think he was ever an offensive coordinator before he got to Nebraska. Check me on that if I'm wrong, but
Yeah,
I don't think he ever was, and he never should have been.
yeah. Send
I
him to
mean,
a Nebraska JV program,
yeah,
JV high school.
yeah. We're gonna see this season the teams that lose by just a play or just a score here and there because UCLA or USC. We'll talk about them here in just a second. They've been losing so many games right at the end, and Lincoln Riley's been talking about it. And then you have Nebraska; they've been losing games right at the end. So you thought you had the battle of James Franklin and Ryan Day last week with losing the big games. You got the battle of two coaches this season that can't win at the end of the game in one score games. And it's crazy to think about. I think Nebraska's best chance there is at USC. I don't think it's at home against Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's defense is going to be too good for them, and they're going to be able to run the ball enough to have it open for Braden Locke. But yeah, I mean, this was the game you had to have as a Nebraska fan to for sure go bowling.
Yep.
And this Nebraska team could end up 5-7. It's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. Which is just unreal
Yeah.
because they have the talent. Like they have
No,
the
yeah, they do.
yeah. And
It's
I get Raiola as a freshman. Like he did not have a good game, but
but he's gotten worse throughout the year. Like
yeah,
that's the most concerning thing to me with Satterfield is like
yeah,
Satterfield has made him a worse quarterback as the year is going on. Now
yeah,
you can argue maybe he was banged up here and there, maybe he had some injuries, stuff like that, but the decision making isn't there. Somebody put in the chat, I don't think the offense fits with him very well. Like, it
yeah.
just it's crazy. So, um, Dave seems to think Wisconsin is not going to a bowl game. Did we review their schedule? They're five
I
and
can.
four.
They.
Oregon, Nebraska,
It's
Minnesota.
possible. It's very
Yeah.
possible they don't go to a bowl game. This is
Could that
after I
be a
post.
game where they're battling for a bowl game right there as Nebraska, Wisconsin?
This is after I posted a video saying is Wisconsin a dark horse playoff contender? No, they're not. That was a terrible take by me.
I mean, if they had beaten Penn State, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't though.
Yeah, they did not. All right, let's